So we are just going to go to the panel now, and just bear with us for one moment while we invite the panelists, panelists back in. And if Laura, if you could take the spotlight off Mitchell. Laura or Chantal, if you could take the spotlight off Mitchell, would be good. Is it? Okay. All right, looks like we're ready to go then. So excellent. Well done, welcome. If we just jump to the next slide, I can just, let's get into introducing this panel discussion. Thank you all for attending the AGM, by the way, and that's all the formal stuff. So we're going to spend the next few moments just talking about the industry transformation plan. And I have here a panel of great people who are all passionate about a part of, well, they're passionate about the whole opportunity, but really passionate about a part of the opportunity that potentially this industry transformation plan can play. The flow of the evening is that I'm going to introduce Robin Henderson from MB in a moment, and then Robin will give us a bit of a view. She's going to co-chair this thing with me, facilitate with me. She'll give a bit of a view on where the government's coming from with the industry transformation plan. And then we'll work through the panelists, and I'll just give them a quick intro, but Robin will get them to give us a bit more detail later. So we have Aroha from Callaghan Innovation. Hi Aroha, thanks for joining us. We have Julie Gill from NZ Tech. Julie's, as I mentioned before, is in charge of strategy and commercialisation at NZ Tech. We've got Paul Matthews from ITP, IT Professionals, not the Digital Transformation ITP, but IT Professionals. Hi Paul. We have Emma Nagy, the Exec Director from the AI Forum. Welcome, Emma. And we have Don Christie, who wears many hats, but today he's here as the co-chair of NZ Rise, but also as the founder and CEO of Catalyst. Welcome, team. So yeah, the Digital Industry Transformation Plan, it's a great piece of work, but it's an industry and a government initiative, joint initiative, but it is part of the government's economic development strategy. So I'm going to introduce or hand over to Robin Henderson, who's the Policy Director for the Digital Economy at MB, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. And Robin, why don't you take us through the ITP and tell us a little bit about how it came about and what the government hopes to see from it.
Oh, thank you, Graham, and thanks to all that have joined the session today. It is a real shame that we're not able to see and talk to you all in person, but I guess we are lucky to have these digital tools, and we can continue to connect and explore how we can all maximise the value of our digital technology sector and what that can bring to New Zealand. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the background to the industry transformation plans and why this is really a great opportunity for industry and government to be working together. So last year, the government decided it wanted to actively partner with our key industries. Prior to that, I think it's fair to say that government's focus was much more on just ensuring that we had the general business environment, that was sound, and that it was really best just to leave it to the market to determine what happened from there. Then I guess at the other extreme, we know that governments, however well-meaning they might be, they can get into trouble when they are in the business of picking winners. That doesn't always end so well when it's adopted as a single approach. So what this government has opted to do is to be really smart about how it intervenes on industry policy and to work really closely with the industry and other stakeholders on the detailed design of these interventions. So it's a conscious decision, and it's been informed by what other governments like Singapore and the UK are doing. It's not just enough to get our operating environment right. We can be smart about the interventions that are going to support a positive transformation, and ultimately it's about better jobs and outcomes for New Zealanders. So what we are working on now is a handful of industry transformation plans. We've got those underway in construction, in agri-tech, digital technologies, and most recently in advanced manufacturing. And we're also supporting MPI on similar partnerships in the primary sector. And as Graham said, these ITPs are a key plank in the government's economic development focus. And they're even more critical now as we look to recover and reimagine our economy working through the COVID-19 global pandemic. So at the heart of these ITPs is a shared vision. What do we want the sector to look like in 2050? What value will it provide to New Zealand's economy and society? And working back from that vision, what are the shared action that government and industry can do differently to realise that vision? And you'll see in our update document that we'll share with you after this session, it's just gone up on our website and I think on NZ Tech's website as well, that we've got a draft, we've got a vision for this ITP, but it is quite broad and it's very aspirational, and we still need to do some work to unpack the key steps towards realising that and to define the specific measures that will tell us whether or not we're making progress. So part of today is to hopefully highlight that this is a really big opportunity for the digital technology sector. Some of you will be familiar with the work on the Agritech ITP launched last month, but I think given the breadth of digital tech, I think we can go even bigger. And as illustrated in the government's investment in the Agritech ITP and its action plan, there is a genuine commitment to co-invest in actions that are really going to shift the dial for ITP sectors and industries. So I'll just cover a bit of the background work to date in terms of where we've got to on our partnership with NZ Tech on this work. So we already had a good working relationship with Graham and his team at NZ Tech, so it made sense to partner with them as the industry lead on the ITP and to draw on there and our links with other sector groups like IT Professionals and NZ Rise and others. One of the first things we did together was host some workshops, which were just about a year ago now, and we worked through what the scope of this ITP should be. We agreed that the scope should be the digital technology sector rather than the application of all digital tech across the economy. That latter approach would be incredibly broad and really difficult to focus. There's also some logic that a healthy and vibrant digital sector will naturally flow into other sectors and industries in the economy, as these are essentially the domestic customer base. We also agreed that we wouldn't look deeply into specific niche areas of focus. If we wanted to have a long-term vision, we needed to keep these areas open to what the future may hold and not be bound by what's happening today. But I think we all agreed that we do need to be more proactive about understanding what the future may hold and look like, and be better prepared to take advantage of that early. So using that information and those decisions, we've hosted a number of regional workshops late last year and sought feedback from 150 odd people who attended. And we're really looking for feedback on, what are the barriers to growth? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And we also tested what was our first draft vision and got a lot of feedback, which we've incorporated into the vision that we're sharing with you today. And then using all of this feedback, we've distilled this into the 7 work streams that we'll share with you today. Some of these are really foundational, things like skills, access to capital. I think everyone would agree that they are pretty fundamental to any growth in this industry, much like other sectors of the economy as well. But other work streams are completely new initiatives, like the development of an artificial intelligence strategy for New Zealand. And how do we create more big and successful New Zealand firms that are exporting their services to the world and creating high quality jobs when they're doing so? So we're in the early stages of scoping these into areas of work, and we are keen to have a strong involvement from industry to ensure that what we're doing is actually hitting the right mark and delivering value. We're also mindful that this is about long-term transformation, not incremental BAU, and we need to collectively keep checking ourselves on what we are putting effort into is shifting the dial. So the final points I just wanted to make in this intro bit are just to emphasise a few things. One is that government and MB as the lead agency for ITPs is really stressing that for these plans to deliver impact, they need to have a whole of system approach. So when you look at the work streams, none of these will be successful with just one agency alone. We're really looking to bring government together to work closely on changing the status quo and disrupting the status quo. The second point is that there are huge opportunities within the Māori economy, and we're looking for help to best shape this into something that's really tangible and meaningful. Thirdly, that this is a true partnership and will only be successful if all partners are contributing and shaping direction. Nothing is set in stone, so if you have ideas or you don't like what you're seeing or what you're not seeing, then tell us. We do know we can't make everyone happy all of the time, but we are in this together, so we want to keep the conversations going. And this industry is only more important for economic and social wellbeing in light of the resilience that we need against this global pandemic. So it's a hugely important work for all New Zealanders. And lastly, our key message is to get involved. It's an open door. We really want to partner with industry. We're genuine about involving people who want to be working on these different work streams. So at this point, I think it's good timing to introduce our panellists today. I think Graham's introduced everyone well. I'll introduce them again and then hand over to them to talk a bit about their areas of interest in the ITP. So Julie Gill is the Chief Strategy Officer for NZ Tech. She's just led the delivery of Tech Week 2020, so deserves a big break for that. And Julie's going to be talking to us today about her work on leading the New Zealand tech brand. After that, Araha Armstrong, who's the Group Manager of Māori Economy at Callaghan Innovation, will talk about the opportunity for Māori in this sector and what we can do there. Don Christie, Co-Chair of NZ Rise, will be talking about the role of government procurement and the government work stream. Emma Nagy is the Executive Director of the AI Forum, and we're really happy to be working with her to start scoping up an AI strategy for New Zealand. And Paul Matthews is the CE of IT Professionals, and he'll be talking about the importance of skills and a skills pipeline for this sector. So, unless there's any questions on any of that background, I've got a question.
Why don't we shake this up a bit? Why don't we get them to pitch? And what I'll do after everyone's done a couple of minutes as to why their stream is so important and why the part they're advocating is really critical for New Zealand. I'll send a little poll out to the audience and we can hear back whether they've convinced you or not, audience, whether you want to actually join one of the work streams. Let's see a bit of expression of interest, right? How about that? There you go, Julie. No pressure.
Great. So I'm up first then, yeah? Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Thanks for introducing that little curveball. So yes, thanks everybody for the opportunity to speak to you today. So I'm going to discuss one of the existing work streams and projects that we're working on. The project is the New Zealand Tech and Innovation Story, which is in collaboration with NBIE, NZTE, NZ Story and Callaghan. And the main purpose is to develop a national cohesive and consistent technology story that we can use internationally. And really the main parts of this, what we'd like to achieve is to be able to sell our tech products and services overseas, increase our export opportunities and attract investment in the tech sector. But there are many things on this list, and there's also how do we raise New Zealand's profile as a destination for tech and innovation, investment and research, and also a destination for tech talent. So this is one of our main purposes in terms of the tech story internationally, but also we do want to work on the national story. So that's also around how do we inspire local interest into tech careers and pathways. So just a small job, and that's a list of some of those achievements we'd like to deliver on across this as a start. So this work stream is probably a little bit more developed than some of the other work streams. We are in the process of planning some workshops in September and October, and one of the focuses on that is how we pull together a stakeholder list that can be truly representative of the industry. So that's across all sectors. That's in terms of size of businesses, from pre-revenue startup up to corporate, government and education. So that'll be a pretty big job, but we are really looking forward to pulling that together and ensuring that we've got true representation, giving us feedback on what you'd like to see from the tech story. And I think everybody knows that tech is across so many sectors. So we really want that representation. And coming back to Graham's pitch, obviously join my work stream, forget all the rest on here today, get the poll in and come and join the tech story work stream. But I think some of the key things that we're looking to do at the workshops in September, October is that we really want to identify at this point the pre-development piece of the story. So what are the gaps? You know, what kind of story do you want to see, and more importantly, what does that look like in terms of assets? We're used to getting on the plane, so you know, and going and doing the handshaking and seeing people, doing contracts. So in terms of assets, you know, that's probably a little bit easier. But now we're going to have to get creative. So you know, we've got a fantastic tech sector. How do we come up with some great technical assets that we can use to tell our story internationally, and also what, you know, who within the businesses needs that story, and then I think what are those markets that we want to actually go and tell our story to. So again, really confirm those priority markets, and identify who within those markets we want to go and share our story. So lots to talk about in this work stream, but that gives you a little bit of a taste, hopefully, of the goals and the objectives. And just to say that, you know, we want to take New Zealand's story to the world, and I think we've got a fantastic story. So come on my stream and we'll get really creative and have a lot of fun doing it on the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Then Aroha is up next to deliver her pitch to the audience. Also, I think it's fair to say people can join more than one work stream, so you can split your vote over different areas.
Oh, how I love surprises. Tēnā koutou, everybody. I think I'll just start today by just sending a big mihi to all of those who have lost people in the last few months to COVID and to other causes where we haven't been able to follow our normal grieving practices and come together. To those who've sacrificed their freedoms for the greater good. It's been a wonderful example of New Zealand as a community and as a team, and I'm very proud of that. I wanted to make a mihi to those we've lost an important rangatira, a leader in Te Arawa Waka, Rotorua, where I'm from. That's my iwi. Ken Hingston has passed away, and we are grieving his loss at the moment. So that's just wanted to start there and acknowledge all of the businesses who are doing it tough right now during this crisis, and looking forward to seeing all our stories of survival. So, workstream, the Māori workstream. Where do I start? I don't think it's my stream, but I'm very much advocating for the idea that there is a Māori work stream, and also more importantly that Māori should be part of every single work stream. That's the key message I want to put here, is that we need to see Māori and Pacifica represented everywhere to add richness to this conversation. What's one of the biggest lost and missed opportunities that this country faces is just not having us at the table to add that value right at the start when we're setting visions and setting directions, because that's where the real value is created, is when we're right there at the beginning and we can bring and share the different perspectives and different knowledge, so that whatever we come up with is we're all buying into, it's for all of us and represents all of us and is something that we can all be excited about. So that is I think the Māori workstream will be exciting, but I think there'll be some excitement in helping to make sure that we've got Māori poked in across everywhere to help support this whole digital transformation plan. I mean, of course, for the future of New Zealand, the whole digital transformation, I mean, I'm real impressed. We had all the workshops where no Māori were at, and then the vision came out that we want New Zealand to be a leader in ethical, innovative, inclusive and sustainable tech. Ka rawe, I love that. I just love that because also Māori have been at the forefront of quadruple bottom line commercial businesses for a long time, so it's not new to us. Consumers are demanding that now. We've got a lot of experience that we can share in that space, and I feel like that can add real value to New Zealand's tech story, is that we can bring a deep knowledge and deep, rich, compelling story if we involve our Te Ao Māori in that conversation. I think it's really important that we see ourselves reflected and included everywhere in tech. We actually are there. We've got 50 companies that are listed on Callaghan Innovation Scale Up, 50 Māori companies. We've got some really amazing big thinkers in the space: Straker Translation, Sentient Software, Robotics Plus, Animation Research. They're all Māori owners that can add deep technical knowledge as well as bring some broad Māori understanding. So just making sure we have all of our people at the table is a real opportunity, and I'd love to see some of those invited to attend some of the future conversations. It's really important. What else do I want to say? I wrote a few little notes. I think that's all I've got to say. I think it's really, I want to acknowledge you, Graham, for picking up on maybe our lack of involvement in the past, and the desire to engage us in the future is really, really important. And I'm very pleased to support and tautoko where I can. Probably it won't be leading a work stream, but it probably will be making sure that we can help invite and bring the right people to the table to help add value. So kia ora, everyone, jump in on that Māori stream. That's choice.
Thanks, Ella. And we do need cheerleaders as well. If you know, advocates and cheerleaders. So there's always a place.
Awesome.
Thanks, Araha. Don, over to you to talk about the government work stream and how we can improve.
Tēnā koutou katoa, yeah. Just to clarify, I'm a former co-chair of NZ Rise. I'm standing in for Victoria McLennan, who's far more wonderful than me. So this work stream, I think, is critical. The context, of course, is global health and economic crisis. And that's the lens at which I believe we absolutely have to be viewing this work stream right now. We're extremely fortunate in New Zealand that as a country, as a society, I think our response has been exemplary. And my goodness, thank you, Auckland, for the way you've reacted so quickly to the lockdown and queuing for hours and hours for testing and so on. So we're very, very mindful of the situation you're facing now, and we know tomorrow we might be there ourselves, but thank you. So one of the points I've been talking about in terms of what role does government have to play in our sector, and we've heard about the overarching goals that we have around a vibrant and growing and exciting sector. One that the Labour Party, when it was campaigning at the last election, wanted to be the second largest contributor to GDP. This government spends, according to figures from a couple of years ago, $3 billion on IT every single year. We know that how that money is spent has a real impact on our sector and on how our future generations view their careers and where they want to be. So, for example, we've got an economic study that demonstrates that, about 30% of the money that a government will spend on an IT project, if it's spent within New Zealand, about 30% of that money will go back to government. That's in taxes and secondary taxes. So out of that $3 billion, we get $1 billion straight back into our treasury by just thinking about how we spend that money. And then on top of that, if we are thinking about how government engages with our sector, and for the sake of our economic recovery and economic future, making those dollars work twice as hard as they have been in the past. So the Prime Minister is very, very strong on this point, that basically you spend $1, to achieve an outcome, but you try and achieve at least 2 outcomes with that spend. So this is the sort of thinking that we're trying to bring to the table, and it really requires strong leadership within government agencies. So it's not something that can be fixed by changing procurement rule. It's not something that can be fixed by individual engagements. It's something that we need to set targets on, that we need to measure, that we need to report back on. And it's these sort of KPIs need to be set at agency by agency level. Where are you spending your money? What's the overall value been? Are we improving New Zealand's resilience? Are we improving our capability? Are we taking heed of issues like Māori data sovereignty, which are key to our health outcomes, but actually not just key to Māori health outcomes, but all of our health outcomes. So once we start looking, for example, at due diligence on these systems through a Māori lens, we discover that it has a huge impact on our, the rest of New Zealand as well. So these are all things that I'm obviously, as you can probably tell and hear, very passionate about. And I'll just give you an example. I know you've got Orion Health on your board. Ian McRae is absolutely, you hear him talk about this time and time again. In 1993, Orion Health got its foot in the door of health software because of a government procurement process that allowed them to build some IT for government and then become one of the largest and most successful software companies in New Zealand, exporting globally, huge successes across the world. And they're, an organization I think that we all aspire to be. And Ian sometimes bemoans the fact that we've lost that ability to make our dollar work hard by investing in New Zealand companies, getting them to produce something that is useful for New Zealanders that can then be taken overseas and exported. So that's my thrust. And obviously the more of us that are in this team, the better we'll be, and the more points of view that we'll be able to represent. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Next up is Emma, please, to talk about artificial intelligence and the opportunity in front of us.
Thanks, Robin, and good evening, everyone. I'm not sure I can compete with all these initiatives. They're all incredibly important, and I think they all link together. They also feed into some of the work that will need to be done for an AI strategy, a national AI strategy, and data-driven innovation. So just to be clear, I'm advocating for two streams this evening. One being a national AI strategy and the second being data-driven innovation. Now, those of you that are involved with the AI Forum or AI in general will know that there's been lots of calls for a national AI strategy for some time, and there's lots of reasons around that. I think we're all pretty much aware of the opportunities that AI can present to every sector of life and every sector of New Zealand. But we haven't yet invested, both in terms of actual investment, but also in steering our national direction on this. So I am extremely happy to see that we are looking to scope out a national AI strategy, and hats off to MB for including this in the ITP. It's a really, really good move. I think, New Zealand does get criticised for being slightly behind in these areas, but I think it's going to be very helpful because we can take a lot of learnings from strategies that have been created across the world. And we can take the bits that we agree with, and then we can adapt that to our unique New Zealand way. And I think we've got a real opportunity to produce a world-leading AI national strategy, and I think that will come through our collaborative nature. And that's the key thing for me in this, is that this is going to be co-designed, a co-designed national AI strategy, and that's where AI Forum is going to help in that. And we want to really engage with our industry, with our ecosystem, and figure out what a national strategy should include that is most helpful to our industry, to research, to academia, to government, and shape it together. So what is going to have the most impact for all of us, and also then address some of the major concerns that AI brings up. So really exciting. Would love you to get involved. I hope lots of people will get involved. We need to do this together, so let's come together and do that. And just very quickly on data-driven innovation, lots of people think data is part of AI. It's not always. It's a huge part, obviously, but it's not always. Data doesn't equal AI, and AI doesn't equal data. And I think we need to do a lot of work around understanding the value of data and its ability to provide insights and knowledge and new direction for every part of New Zealand. So really wanting to explore how we better understand the value of data, how we get SMEs, New Zealand, preparing to use data better, and how we use that to allow every part of New Zealand to adapt and evolve in the most kind of productive and efficient way possible, and how we make it equitable. So how we open up data, not only open up data across government, but how we share public and private data, whether it be data trusts and so on. So there's lots of really, really great meaty stuff to explore together, and super important for our future, and super important for not only our economic future, but you know, where this is a foundation of tech that is relatively new, and we have the opportunity to lay down foundations in this that we haven't perhaps done before in other areas of tech. So let's try and do that really well. So yeah, join those streams, get involved. We'd love to have you as part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I think you've roused some interest from that. So last but not least, I'm going to hand over to Paul to talk about skills and the importance of skills for this sector.
Kia ora, how's it going? I just want to start by echoing everything that everybody else has said, because I think it's really powerful, and it's really important that when we look at this industry transformation plan, we look at the work streams, but we see it as a well-connected plan. And I think Aroha said it best when she was saying that Māori need to be involved in every component of this, in every work stream of this, and that applies to skills just as much, if not more, than other areas as well. Hey, as Graham and Robin said, my name's Paul Matthews. I am the Chief Executive of IT Professionals New Zealand. Now, we look after the people side of the tech sector, so Graham and his team and NZ Rise as well look after the broader industry side and things like exporting. We look after the people side and focus on skills and education as a core part of what we do, and that's really why I'm here talking about the skills component of the industry transformation plan. Now, ITP, before we go any further, I just want to address the slight difficulty in that I'm going to mention ITPs in 3 different contexts here. So ITP is obviously the Industry Transformation Plan. It's also IT Professionals New Zealand, our acronym. And thirdly, which I'll touch on a little bit later, is the Institutes of Technology and Politics. So ITP is a very well used term, but I'll try and put it in context when I mention it as we go. Very quick big thanks to Graham and NZ Tech for spearheading the overall ITP side of things, and that's the plan from the industry side, and making sure that it's not just one part of the industry, that it's a really broad discussion that incorporates all of the sector, not just in terms of our groups, because that's important too, but also more broadly than that, right across the board. So it's a good job. And I think the second challenge that we have once we get there is to realise that creating the ITP is the starting point. We don't want to create something that sits on a virtual shelf gathering dust. We want to create something that actually really does drive our sector forwards over the next few years. So that's something on all of us to do. So anyway, skills. So first off the pitch, I've got the easy job. I mean, the fact is we simply will not achieve anything across the rest of the ITP if we don't sort out skills. Skills are fundamental to everything that our sector does in lots of different contexts, and I'll talk about some of that now. Now I'm going to talk about the skill shortage a little bit, but I want to reframe it, because often we talk about a skill shortage and we think, right, we need to get lots more people into the sector. And that's not actually the case. Now, some individuals will debate this because it does impact on different people differently. But looking at the macro level, looking across the sector, we do have a huge skill shortage, but it's actually a skills mismatch that we have. You know, there are actually enough people in our industry. We could do with a few more, but by and large, the biggest area of shortage isn't people. It's by and large the disconnect between the people that we have and the skills that we need as a sector. And that comes, that shows itself in a number of different ways, from recent graduates coming through, but also it's highlighted by the fact that the roles that we do have the biggest shortage in are generally those that are more experienced, more senior roles. So some of the more traditional ones, senior developers, project managers, architects, those sort. Also people with really good skills around things like AI, cybersecurity, some of those ones that aren't actually that new, but are becoming more prevalent from an employment perspective. So, the skills that we have are mismatched to the skills that we need both now and going into the future. And of course, that's been partially solved up until now by just buying in what we need. Immigration's featured very strongly in our industry. That's always going to be part of the solution, but short term, that's really challenged now. Obviously, not just in terms of New Zealand's context and bringing people in, but worldwide as well. There is a real challenge around immigration. It's one that we need to solve and solve quickly for New Zealand's well-being and for our sector, but it is going to be a challenge in the short term. And long term, we really want immigration to supplement what we've got. People coming in from overseas bring really good skills and knowledge and experience and in ways and organisations and in environments that we can't replicate in New Zealand. They're really valuable, but we want it to be a supplement. We don't want New Zealanders being unemployed and not being able to find work, especially with great skills in tech. And at the meantime, we bring people in to fill those needs. So it's a yin and yang thing. We need to be developing our own people, and we need to be supplementing that through immigration. So just to close off on that point, the reality is we don't have a shortage of people, we have a mismatch of skills, and that's the context that I think we need to take into the plan. Now very quickly, I've only got a couple of minutes up front, what we're seeing from the research is a perceived disconnect between graduate skills and industry needs, a perceived cost of graduates and interns, and I say perceived around both of those, and I'll come back to that in a second. A need for soft and technical skills, and both in a qualification context, but also with people who are working in our sector. Curriculum changes through school and tertiary. Now, I'll just say that for those last couple there, a huge amount of work has gone into them. So the digital technologies curriculum in schools is now enriched. It's about creating with technology, not just using technology. It's there, it's in place. I don't like this word, but it's compulsory from this year in all schools, all students from years 1 to 10. Huge amount of work's gone into that. It's fantastic to see. It's going to make a really big difference to not just our sector, but also the digital skills of New Zealanders as a whole. So that's fantastic. And we can kind of tick that one off and say, job well done. Still need to support the schools, still need to support the teachers, but a big piece of work's gone in place there. Tertiary qualifications have been completely redesigned. Sub-degree level have been recreated, starting from the industry first and working back. So all of those qualifications at the sub-degree level have been rewritten. They've been reviewed just recently as well to make sure that they've got a really strong future and current focus. Degree accreditation has meant that the degrees that cover off things like soft skills and technical skills, teamwork, communication, complexity of problem solving, all those sorts of things, have been recognised and are being recognised, and that's driving behaviour across the rest of the degree side as well. Great work by our sector, working with the Ministry of Education. They've been fantastic across these areas, they really have. There is one area of very real and very current risk on the vocational side, with some challenges around WDCs, but we're working with those involved in that at the moment, and we're hoping to get a bit more positive stuff. We do have some problems with that. I'm not going to go into it in great detail now because I'll be talking all day if I do.
Don't start that, Paul. Don't start that path.
Yeah, you check it out on LinkedIn and on TechBlog as well. Which leaves the other couple, and I'll just quickly finish on this. The first couple I mentioned before, they were perceived issues. And I'm going to say a couple of things that some people here may find contentious. Some will argue about, and I think that's a good thing because I think we need some debate on some of this. The fact is that no other professional industry would expect graduates to know everything on day one. No other professional industry would expect this whole 2 years experience thing before they're prepared to hire people. And almost every other professional industry in New Zealand and around the world invests in their people more heavily than we do as a sector in the first few years of work. And I'm talking about as a whole. So there's some great examples of companies and organisations and government agencies and all the rest who are doing great things, but as a whole, as an industry, we do a really, really poor job of developing people as they come out from the tertiary sector and expecting them to have these work-ready skills and things that no other sector would expect. So we would argue that the biggest change that needs to happen through the industry transformation plan rather is a change in the culture and expectations of our industry, and putting in place the systems, the processes, the mechanisms and things that allow our sector to invest in our people. Now, to give you a couple of quick examples, internships. You know, we've got Summer of Tech, fantastic program. They do a great job every year finding interns in the tech sector. Now, every year, this year's a prime example of this, they have 1,000 students, thousands of students that want to be involved. They struggle to get a tiny proportion of our sector who are prepared to take an intern. Now, we know as a sector, we need to develop our people. We know internships is one way we do that. Why do we not step up in mass and say, yes, we're prepared to take an intern for that? You know, people talk about cost, people talk about lots of other things, but the fact is that we don't do it as a sector. And again, there's some great examples of where we do, but by and large we don't. Providers are the same. You know, we say that we want more industry practice within tertiary qualifications. Every time a provider tries that, they struggle so hard to get industry to front up and say, yes, we will take a project. And again, lots of companies do, lots of those on this call are probably preaching to the converted, they probably are doing it, but there's a heck of a lot of companies out there that aren't. You know, apprenticeships, the same thing, we've got a big opportunity there.
Sorry to cut you off, Paul, but I think you're getting a little unfair advantage here. You're getting some extra time. What I'm going to do is get you to hold some of your powder dry in case people don't want to join your group. I think it's time to just check in with the audience here. I'm going to pop a poll up. I want you to just to let us know what, you know, if you had to pick one. Unfortunately, you can only pick one. But if you had to pick one, which one of these advocates do you think have given you the best pitch? Where do you want to come and get involved in the industry transformation plan? Now, unfortunately for this, it's just picking one. We'll look at that. Can you see the results, or is it just me? Wow, okay, I can tell you anything then. It's looking pretty good. There's really good engagement. No one has said that they're not interested. We've got really good engagement going on here. At the moment,
so Graham, once it's done, you can publish and it will show it to everybody. So you've got to wait until everyone's finished.
I'm just going to let the numbers go up a little bit. While we're doing that, I can tell you now there is a little bit less interest there, Don, in the government one, and I do have a question, so I'm going to give you a bit of extra time while the polling continues. There was a question here about other governments in various methods favour their own IT companies, and we seem to be ignorant of those when we frame up our government procurement rules. Have you got any comments you want to make on that, or how you think potentially something like the ITP government work stream could be used to you know, support something like that?
So if we look at, say, what's happened in the UK, and we've got a business in the UK as well, the government has taken a very deliberate strategy to make sure that its contracts and approach to IT is set up in a way that you don't just put out a big multi-million or multi-hundreds of millions dollar project. You break it down into component parts, which is, you know, much smaller component parts, which has two effects. One, it de-risks things massively, because if you have a failure, the failure is at a small way. And this is kind of what we've got into in IT for the last few years anyway, the iterative build a product, repeat type thing. But government contracting doesn't allow that. And that makes it hard for a lot of New Zealand companies to actually get in and bid for bits of work. And because, yeah, it makes it a far too exclusive camp. The other thing that's been happening in the UK for the last 10 years at least is the government has actually collected data on how they're spending the money. It's incredible how little data there is from the New Zealand government agencies on what they've spent the money on at an aggregated level and what the outcomes are. They'll always tell you how much they've saved, but they'd never tell you, you know, where they've spent the money. In the UK, they have a live graph that basically tracks where money is being spent and whether they're achieving their goal of better engagement with SMEs. So Simon Mutter used to have a really good catchphrase, which is like, he wants to make New Zealand the place where his children want to live. And really, our children are going to follow the money. So if the money is going, you know, offshore or going into areas that don't that aren't going to help us reach these outcomes that we're looking for, that's where they're going to go. So we need to think very hard about the frameworks and the approach to making sure that there's a lot more space for New Zealand companies to play. I'll just finish with one joke, because I'm, obviously, I'm based in Wellington. There is a difference, I know, between the Wellington approach to the market and the Auckland approach to the market. The joke is if Wellington businesses see a problem, then they tell government how to fix it. And if Auckland businesses see a problem, they go to the marketing people. And I think that's that's possibly why you're maybe seeing less interest in the government side of things, and I totally understand that as well.
Here we go. Speaking of that, here's the results for everyone. Can you see that? So some good results. We had 81 people polling up. There's some real interest in skills. That long-winded speech you put in there, Paul, almost got you across the line, but I think Emma's the artificial intelligence future is the winner, right? So, but good engagement across the board. And as I said, that obviously we can choose more than one when the going gets going. So I'll just point out that that the opportunity for everyone is to put an expression of interest after this, and we will actually reach out to all the attendees and ask if you'd like to be involved, and give you different ways to be involved. And the best way to help New Zealand have a prosperous future is to leverage something like this IT industry transformation plan opportunity, and lean into it and work together, collaborate to bring things together. Robin, did you want to take over? And I've done a bit of talking now. Do you want to jump back in?
Yeah, so I just noticed there's a few questions that have come through. One is around a view of impact on ITP. I'm not sure in which context ITP is being used, but I think it might just be even IT on domestic productivity and export success. And can we bring all of New Zealand along, or is that hard to do? I think that is at the heart of this. I think in terms of, it's quite well known, a lot of research done on the more digital capable businesses are, the more likely they are to be more highly productive and also to be exporting and delivering revenue. So that is a focus, but of course it is also the challenge. So we're hoping that these initiatives will start to make some inroads on that. But there's also some other work, like the current inquiry that the Productivity Commission is leading on New Zealand's frontier firms and how we get more of those. And so that's really relevant to this work as well. Hopefully that answered, or at least part answered that question. And I guess, Emma, I was just keen, and it kind of relates to Araha's comment as well around Māori participation in things like the AI strategy and the opportunity there for us to make more of that, given that there aren't really any other strategies overseas that have brought in that Indigenous element and what we can really set as a platform and as an opportunity for the country, and also how we're seen overseas.
Absolutely, and I think it's both the AI strategy and data innovation. As I mentioned, this is our chance to lay the right foundations, and that has to have Indigenous Māori views all the way through that. And I also think there is a hell of a lot to share with the rest of the world and lead the rest of the world incorporating Māori Indigenous views and principles, particularly around data sovereignty and other aspects. So it's crucial, and it's also a significant point of difference for New Zealand that we really need to share with the rest of the world, because there's so much for others to learn from. And having been to San Fran at WEF HQ, the interest in that is immense, and the respect for that is immense. So yes, it's really, really important.
I wondered if we could just go around our panelists again and get them to spend just 30 seconds saying what success would look like for your particular area. So in 12 months' time, what would you like to see that would be different to where we are today? Julie, could we...
Sorry, and not just for your particular area, because I think to Araha's point, there's an influence across the different strands, right? So yes, obviously from the part you're advocating for, but don't think of it in terms of the framework of think about what you're advocating for, what success would look like. not necessarily what work streams are going to be in place. Julie.
Yeah, well, I suppose, well, interestingly enough, the tech story is across all of the ITP, you know, and as you say, across all sectors. So I think I'd really love to think that we achieved that the world really understood clearly the New Zealand tech story and understood about the tech and innovation in this country. And I suppose how does that turn into actual success measures? I think, you know, obviously increase in exporting, you know, talent coming into the country, people wanting not just to live here but work here, so an increase in tech talent in the country, and also I think investment coming in, plus people wanting to come in and do, you know, research and development, so an increase in that, so increase in people wanting to work and play and live here. And then finally probably just an increase in people going into tech careers, and especially in those areas where we don't see it, so women, again, you know, a lot of those the diverse workplaces as well. So a lot in there, Robin, I know, but if we just seen an increase in, you know, a couple of those areas, I think that'd be a big win.
Yeah.
Can I just add something as well, Julie? Because you know, with the Upstarters campaign, the original tech story work we started a couple of years ago, one of the things that I would put down for success as well is the industry itself, the companies that are reaping the benefits of the tech story are actually getting in behind it and directing it in the direction they need it to go to help them grow and achieve.
Actually,
so
you're right,
just
Graham.
Sit back and hope the government has some cool marketing for them, but also grab hold of it by the throat and use it and direct it the way they need it.
Yeah, and actually that is right. It is that simplistic term that where they actually do use it. So you're right. Yeah, that would definitely be a piece, which I'm sure confidently that they will by the time we finish.
Very good. Araha, for you, what would success look like in a year's time?
Yeah, I can't think in 12 months. I can only think in big long time frames. I think for me, echoing exactly what Julie said, it would just be, for me personally, it would just be seeing an equitable future for our kids, right? Because I think it just, at the moment, New Zealand is already a place where talent and everybody wants to live. Holy shit, we've got that bit nailed. It would just be, for me, to see more equity everywhere. And I think through tech, that's exactly what we can achieve. And I think if we are thinking transformationally right now, what I think we need to be careful of is being a bit BAU about a digital transformation plan for this country. I think we really need to focus on actually being transformational and having those values that were so beautifully put out, those values of innovation, inclusivity, and sustainable co-created tech. That's the future I want for all our kids, not just some of us who have nice lives, all of us. Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah. Well said, thank you. Don, over to you.
It's a really difficult one, and I agree with the previous comments and just the short term. I mean, for me, it is that what we've seen in our public health response to COVID is the value of government. That we've spent the last 40 years being educated that government just needs to be hands off and small and leave us all alone and the market will come through. Right now, that's out the window. And what I'd like to see is a realization that the value of the dollar that is spent in New Zealand creating solutions that actually suit our intelligence, the context in which we live and work, in the fact that we're a heterogeneous society, you know, our data sets are important to us, and we can't allow them to be subsumed by those massive sets of data when we're building our AI models, for example, that come out of the US or Europe or elsewhere. So we've got to have that capability here, and a recognition of that in government, and the value government can bring by thinking strategically about how it's engaging with our sector and how it is building capability within New Zealand. So that's probably rather too long, but thank you.
No, all good. Thanks, Don. Emma.
I'm going to keep it quite high level. I think for me, success in 12 months is greater confidence and collaboration. So building the way we collaborate and trusting that we do collaborate to use AI, data, tech to better all parts of our future together.
Cool, that makes sense. And Paul.
Awesome, and as I think somebody previously said, 1 year is a bit tough because a lot of the stuff is a long-term thing, but a couple of things, and the 1 year thing, changing culture, as I mentioned before, more companies, and even people on this call, getting interested and involved in internships is a really good, fairly low-cost way of helping the next generation come through. Separately from that, I think the innovation that we've built over time, or over this time with COVID, it's been a really big grey cloud, but it's had some silver linings around the innovation we've seen across industry, across government, IRD getting loans out in a matter of days. If we can hang on to some of that and bring that through into our culture going forward, I think we will get something positive out of this. And lastly, just more industry involved in helping schools and teachers. That job's not done, so we need to follow that through.
Great, thank you, Paul. Over to you, Graham.
Me. In terms of what the success would look like?
Yeah, what are you hoping? Where are you hoping to be in a year's time? Which is just a a short step on our journey, but I think it's important to keep us grounded.
I really like the way we're framing it up and starting it. We're trying to get tech. For me, tech is the whole country, and so we need great inputs. We need great support. We don't need a few people sitting in ivory towers trying to work out what the future is. So for me, the Digital ITP in a year's time will be activating, and it'll have hundreds of people from across government and industry and education and academia and society all leaning into this tech, the opportunity that tech can bring for New Zealand. And to the other panelists' point, it's about transformation, so not business as usual. So all agreeing to take some big goals and trying to make a shift, whether that's in terms of the nature of what the sector looks like, for example, in terms of its profile, or just saying we're going to grow exports, I think is low-hanging fruit. That's going to happen anyway. Okay? So let's give ourselves some dirty, great, big, hairy goals and see what we can do.
Great, thank you. So I think Laura has already said that she will collate all of the offers of interest that will be coming in, and we'll feed those to Graham and me, and we'll be in touch. A number of the work streams are just in the early stages and are kicking off workshops of different forms, and so this is really the time to get on board and help shape the work ahead and really come with solutions. We're really looking for things that we can implement and deliver change, and it might not solve everything in 12 months, but we want to start that journey and just demonstrating how a different approach can really deliver value. So keen to have you on board.
Great, thanks, Robin. And I'd just like to really reinforce and thank all the 100+ people that have been engaging on this call. And if we can do this a few more times and keep getting more people supporting, that'd be great. Thank you all for your time and listening in. And thank you so much to the panelists for taking your time out to share where your passion is, and you can see it coming through. And it was great to see that it's like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? How all these parts have to fit together. And that's a great sign that the last year of meetings and consultations, stuff like that, is getting us to this nice framework, which gives us this ability to bring projects in and work together. I see Mitchell has joined us on. Did you want a closing remark, Mitchell?
No, thank you, Graham. I'm all good.
Excellent.
I've just been enjoying being in the audience.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Well, to everyone, thank you so much for attending our AGM, for supporting this panel discussion. And this is really the start. We'll be reaching out to everyone looking for expressions of interest and really want those smart ideas and the passion and the push to do the T in the industry transformation plan. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Give me a nice smile so I can record for prosperity. Wonderful. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, click. Lovely. Eyes are all open. Yes. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.